everyone, it's Jen Lucas. Welcome back to Yarn Purpose. Today, let's talk about the Addi FlexiFlips. Hey everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back. Today I wanted to talk to you about some new to me needles. I think they are pretty new in general. It is the Addi FlexiFlips. My friend Jennifer, who's Knitting Quilter on Instagram, she actually purchased these. I think she bought them used from somebody on Instagram. And then I was like, oh, those look kind of cool. So she let me borrow them to try for you guys so I can make a little video review for you. So let's get right into it. So it's the size 2.25 millimeter, which is a size 1, which is typically what I knit my socks on, is the US size 1. So the needles themselves, they come in a pack of 3 here. And they're really a cross between a double pointed needle and a circular needle. So I'm just going to pick up one here so you can see. So you have 2 tips here, like you would on a regular, double pointed needle or circular needle. But the difference here is you can see this cord in the middle is much shorter. So the overall length of this is 21 centimeters. That's just under 8.5 inches. I measured it. And each of these tips is about 3.5 inches. It's a little bit shorter than 3.5 inches. But so you've got your 2 tips, which are just under 3.5 inches. The cord in the middle is about 1.5 inches. So it's 21 centimeters, or it was, like I said, just under 8.5 inches. The cool thing about these is that they have 2 different tips. I'm going to knit with these 2 so you'll be able to see them a little bit closer up in a minute. So they have 2 different tips. So one side is the blunt side, which is the Addi Turbo needle, and then the other one is a pointier needle, which is the Addi Rocket needle. So that's kind of cool. So you buy one set and you're actually getting 2 different needles, because some people like turbos, some people like rockets. I personally prefer a pointier needle. So when I knit on these on my socks, I was using the pointier side because that is just my preference. So to compare this to my normal needle that I'm using for sock knitting, normally I'm using the Knitter's Pride carbons these days. You can see that point, the tip of the needle here, where I said on the Flexi Flip is about 3.5 inches, you can see that that is quite a bit shorter than the tip on a traditional circular needle. The one on the Knitter's Pride is about 5 inches. So that's something to consider too. So anyway, these are just a really interesting tool if you are into trying new kinds of needles. I do like to try all different kinds of needles. If you don't try them all, how are you going to know which ones are your favorite, right? So this was the perfect situation since my friend Jen, had purchased them and then she let me borrow them to try, which that's the great thing about having a knitting group is that we can kind of pass tools around like that so we don't all have to buy them. You can decide, you can try what your friends and then decide if it's the right purchase for you to make yourself. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut to me knitting with them so you can actually see a little bit of footage of how I knit with them on my sock. So stay tuned. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and knit with the Addi FlexiFlips. So like I showed you, they come in a set of 3. So you're going to have 2 needles on your knitting, in this case, my sock, and then you're going to use your 3rd needle to knit with. So this is sort of a hybrid to me between using DPNs to knit your sock and using 2 circular needles to knit your sock. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a hybrid of the 2. So then to show you again here, the needles have 2 different points. So again, this is the pointier side, the Addi Rocket side, and then this is the blunt side, which is the Addi Turbo side. Again, I like my needles a little bit pointier, so I am going to go ahead and use the pointy side for my knitting. So then to do that, you just want to make sure you have the pointy side facing your knitting, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start knitting. And then you're just going to knit all the way across the row like you normally would with, your regular sock knitting, however you're currently doing it. You can see here for me, I tend to take my pinky on my right hand and kind of clamp down on my needle. And with these needles being shorter than the traditional circular needle, the tips being shorter, I'm kind of losing that. I'm kind of end up trying to grab the cord, and it is just making it a little bit awkward for me. I'm sure with practice it would get better. Also, the other thing I've noticed while I was knitting with these is that the back needle, this one in particular, again, it might just be the way I personally knit, and I know every single person knits a little bit differently, but I find that this needle a little bit just keeps kind of poking my hand. I just have a hard time, especially at the beginning of the row, sort of keeping it out of the way. So let's go ahead and finish up this side. There we go. And then we're just going to flip it over. We have one needle free. So I want the pointy tip, so I'm going to put the pointy tip towards my knitting and start on the next side. So to me, this really is, like I keep saying, a hybrid between DPNs and knitting your sock on two circulars. The advantage to this, in my opinion, or just in my experience, over knitting my sock on two circulars, is that when I knit on two circular needles, I have a tendency to accidentally pick up the needle that's in the back and then use it to knit my stitches in the front. And what happens is then I have all my stitches on the one needle. It's the reason that I ended up going to Magic Loop versus doing two circulars for my socks. So with this, it would be extremely hard, I think, to somehow knit all of your stitches onto, I don't even know how you would do it, but I think it would be really hard to, you know, take this needle. I mean, you can't even really bend it this way to knit, you know, knit all of your stitches onto one of these. So that is definitely an advantage. The other thing too, if you knit two socks at a time, I personally don't, but if you do knit two socks at a time, I don't think that there's really any way to knit two socks on these needles. I think they're just too short to have two socks going at the same time on them. I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I really think that you would end up having a lot of dropped stitches everywhere if you did try to do that. And if you did do it, please leave me a comment below because I will be very impressed with you. So the other thing I will say is that I did give these a pretty good try as far as knitting with them. When I went to Vogue Knitting Live with my friends, and I think I mentioned this in the recap, and I'll leave a link to the recap up here in the corner, we did go and sit and knit in the lobby for a while, and we probably sat there for almost 2 hours, and I knit almost that entire time using these FlexiFlips. So, you know, I do feel like I gave them a pretty good run on my sock, you know, to just see how, you know, how I could change holding them and how they feel in my hands and things like that. Again, I think that with a little bit of practice, it would be better. You know, I could probably figure out how to, you know, position my hands a little differently maybe in order to, you know, in order for it to be a little bit more comfortable for me. And I think that, and I do think if you like 9-inch circulars, you may find that you like these needles a lot because they do have the shorter tips like the 9-inch circular needles do. So there we go. So that's just a couple little rounds here on the Addi FlexiFlips. So just keep watching and I will give you my overall impression sort of on these needles. Okay, so that was me knitting with my Addi FlexiFlips. My overall opinion of them is that they are a neat tool, and I think that if you like to knit on the 9-inch circular needles for your socks, I personally do not like knitting on 9-inch circular needles. I have tried it, but I think if you like that kind of knitting, if you can handle on your sock sort of your hands being really close together in that configuration, I really do think that you should give these a try. I think you will like them. I personally don't know that I'm going to steer away from the magic loop method for knitting socks to switch to these. I just felt like the way that I knit, I feel like I need that tip of the needle to be a little bit longer, just because how I normally hold the needle, especially in my right hand. It was just a little bit awkward for me. I'm sure with a little more practice it would be a lot better, but I don't know. You know how it is. You get used to knitting a certain way. You know, I just think that magic loop is going to still be my preferred method for knitting. But these were really fun to try. I do think that where I would like these more, because like I said, for a sock, for me, I just don't think that I'm going to use these. But I think like maybe on the top of a hat where you have more fabric or something, you know, you could buy if you have a larger size. I don't knit a lot of hats on size 1s, but maybe the top of a hat or something, maybe these would be a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe I'll try that in the future if I get my hands on a larger size. But yeah, I think they were fun to try, and hopefully you like my little review here. I'll leave some links down below where you can buy them if you want to give them a try. So that's it for me for today. I hope that you liked this video and this quick little review of the Addi FlexiFlips. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And also, if you've tried the Addi FlexiFlips, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what you think of them, and especially if you switched from, you know, like you like to knit socks on 9-inch circs or magic loop and now you're knitting on the FlexiFlips. I would love to know that information because I'm always just curious about how people like to knit. And then if you really like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you like, you can turn on notifications and be notified anytime I upload a new video, which is most Fridays. So that's it for me for today. I hope everybody has a great week, and I'll see you again next Friday. Bye!